Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Area Public Schools Trust for February 5th, 2013. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the January 15th, 2013 meeting, and I would recognize a motion to that effect.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Other discussion? We'll vote. Approved. We have one suburban school district application for funding. Mr. Todd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a application from Putnam City School District for new Arbor Grove Elementary. It is in the usual form and gone through all the usual paths that we take for the suburban schools.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
I move to approve.
Been moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Thank you. We have financial reports now. Mr. Todd?
Mr. Chairman, in your packet you'll find the financial reports under item A, the revenue and obligation report for November 2012, then also the trust payments in B, and then you'll see that we have the trust audited financial report for the period ending June 30th, 2012.
Does anybody have a question on any of these items? If not, I would...
Is this on the financial report as well?
Yes, sir.
I did have some questions on that.
Okay.
There were some material weaknesses discussed, and I did read what they were for in the responses, but first related to 1202, which was about a new process for estimating payables by the various departments. My question was, is that unique to the MAPS projects, or is that for all city projects that payables process is being done?
I do not know that answer to that. Lance, do you know? Let me refer to staff here, our assistant director and business manager. Could you repeat the question, Mr. Francisco?
Yes. Okay. The auditor noted two material weaknesses. One related to a process that apparently was implemented to estimate payables on the various projects that are ongoing. And my understanding from reading was that those estimates are being done by the various departments that are managing the projects. So my question was, is that just related to the MAPS for Kids projects, or is that all city projects?
Those comments were related specifically to the MAPS for Kids.
Okay, but is that process being done citywide or just MAPS for Kids?
It's being done citywide, but that comment referred to this financial report in particular. And it had to do with it. We provided information to accounting, which the city accounting department, which contained retainage figures. And those retainage figures, we didn't end up paying those because we were holding back the retainage figure. We gave them the whole contract amount that was encumbered with the retainage, and those retainage amounts weren't actually paid because we withhold retainage. And so the auditors noted that there was a discrepancy between the amount that we had given them and the amount that was actually paid, and that's the retainage. And we're working with the accounting department to make sure that that doesn't happen next year. So,
second material weakness had to do with payments to the suburban school districts, and apparently in the past we had paid whatever they requested and not known whether or not they actually used it or used it timely. And I'm just wondering kind of how that's changed now.
Actually, we have Glenn Early here, the city controller, who could respond to all these audit questions if it's all right.
Glenn, come on up. That comment had, and Glenn can elaborate on it, but it pertains to when we receive unspent funds back from the districts, then we give those to the treasurer's office. We get a check, we deposit the check. The comments in there, and Glenn can speak to them, have to do with the way that money is dealt with and recorded in the financial statements once we give the checks back to the Treasury Department, whether they're recorded as a revenue or a...
I'd like to address your specific question, if you'd repeat that.
Okay. The auditor was pointing out a material weakness that existed from the standpoint that payments that the city on Mass for Kids is making to the suburban school districts may or may not be used by the suburban school districts, at least on a timely manner from when the payment is made from the city to them. And I'm just wondering what change was made to that process.
Okay. We, we do track the expenditures. OC Maps office tracks the expenditures, gets an annual report from OC Maps. That report, though, is dated the December of each year. So in December, we get a status of all the suburban expenditures. What changed, and so that is how they follow up on how much has been expended and how much the suburban schools still have. What changed, and this was initially set up in accounting to treat those advances to suburban schools as expenditures when this program was set up. It's been operating that way since that day. And this year, our auditors were doing a review of the deposits or revenues back into OC Maps and identified a fairly large transaction and looked into it and determined this was a repayment for funds that were not expended, rather they were returned for that project. And so they questioned how we were handling this. And after review of that, we agree with the auditors that the initial determination that the initial expenditures should not be an expenditure, but rather an advance to suburban schools, and then follow up on those and record the expenditure when the suburban school gives us the report of expenditures. And so that's how we've changed the books. The reason this is a material weakness is this, and this is an accounting and auditing standard, that if we have to adjust a prior period adjustment, by definition, prior period adjustments now under new auditing standards, by definition, are a material weakness, regardless of the cost, as long as it's material. In this case, it was. It's about $7 million restatement to the beginning balances in fiscal year 11. That went down to about $4.4 million in fiscal year 12, this audit year.
Other questions? Comments? Recognize a motion to approve the financial reports.
So moved, Mr.
Been moved. Is there
Chairman.
a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Next item, we're being asked to approve an amended program implementation plan, January 3rd, 2013.
Mr. Chairman, if you recall, last month we presented the amended program implementation plan, and were asked, or it was requested that this continue to this meeting so that members could look at that. So Mr. Mike Mize is here to answer any questions that you might have. You can say that.
Mr. Chairman, members, Manager Clowers, I've got the same PowerPoint that we had last time. It's a very brief PowerPoint. It summarizes the changes that have been made to the implementation plan. There are quite a few changes, but I believe the summary describes what most of the changes, why they were required, and obviously the implementation plan document itself, changes have those in more detail. But I'll just go through this really quickly. The last update prior to this one was in September of 2011. There are 40 changes in this implementation PIP amendment. Most of the changes are fairly generic. Not most of them, several of them are. The page numbers have been modified, table of contents has been modified, and the addendum, as you will recall, is a summary of the changes that have been made, so that's been modified as well. We've made updates to 34 different schools. 21 of them are budget adjustments, which reflect actual construction contract costs that have been encumbered, and those update the previous budget estimates that were in the implementation plan. So in fact, they're more accurate than the budget numbers were in the previous version. 12 schools reflect final closeouts. We've made those changes to those schools. And there's some other modifications, such as the addition of the parking at Class and SAS. The amendment itself describes the changes, change by change, school by school, in a summary kind of a way. But the implementation plan has much more detailed information, which is contained in documents like this that have been modified to reflect the changes that are in this PIP amendment. And this document as well. If you look at this document for Hillcrest Elementary, you'll notice highlighted in yellow at the bottom the fact that this building has been closed out and gives the final cost numbers for the school. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions? Seeing none, I'd recognize a motion that we accept this amended program implementation plan, or I guess approve it.
Move to approve.
It's moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Vote. Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mize. Next item is to approve the final plans and specifications for the John W. Rex Elementary School and authorize the Secretary to advertise for bids to be received March 12th, 2013. Project ES 35.
Mr. Chairman, we're very pleased to bring you the final plans for John W. Rex Elementary School today. And today we have Mr. John Ward from TAP Architecture here to give you a presentation on these final plans.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the Trust, my name is John Ward, and I'll present John W. Rex. We are just completing the Task 3, and we'll be asking you for authorization then to bid the project, which will bid March 12th. I turn this by hitting this button, don't I? There we go. Okay, so I'll give you a quick overview of the project. The project hasn't changed very much since our last presentation. There are a few little points which I'll bring up as we go along. We'll also discuss the budget, our current estimate, and as well as the current schedule. So just as kind of reflect back and kind of a review, the project is located between Sheridan and California and between Walker and Dewey. And this site was selected, it's currently owned by Okura, and it was selected after a site selection process where we took a look at approximately 30 sites. This is a kind of a repeat of an earlier presentation, but kind of as a review, the project is oriented in the northeast corner of the site. It was thought that it was important that the main entry of the project be at the northeast corner, which is closest to the downtown CBD area. And the main classroom wing, it runs northwest along Walker, and it was thought that that was important to maintain the urban edge that is developing along Walker. We also, which you'll see in the next slide, we've situated the major portion of the queuing along the Dewey side, which allows us the most queuing distance for parents in the morning and in the evening when they drop off and pick up their children. And then we have our major services and trash collection off of Sheridan in an area which will be designated as a loading-only zone. So quick recap. We started with the CAP 500 program, and then that program was modified a little bit, through work with the John Rex Board and an education consultant. This is a breakdown of the classrooms. The site plan, I have two site plans to show you. One is the base bid site plan, and then one is an alternate. We have several alternates, which we'll discuss in more detail. But again, the school classroom wing runs north and south along Walker. The gymnasium wing runs east and west along Sheridan. And the playground then is, as you see, is kind of in the west southwest quadrant of the site. The alternates, this is a base bid slide, and what you see is kind of a purple-blue color, are canopies which reach out to Dewey, where the children will be dropped off and picked up, and that will, from that location, they'll either go to the gym or go out to the playground before school. There's another connector between the gym and the school that you see, and then there's another connector that is on the south at California, which reaches from the school out to a secondary drop-off zone. These are part of the base bid. Importantly, we have an alternate that expands that, and I'll show you that in a minute. The playground configuration is the same in both circumstances, however, varying slightly. We have an alternate for the gym. This gym is approximately the same size as the gyms that are moving forward in the current initiative for maps. We have an alternate for a larger gym, which would then impact the playground slightly. So I'll move on to that. This is the alternate slide. So if we have a favorable bid opening, we have money left over, some of these will happen and others will not. But the darker purple then is alternate 5, which is to increase the amount of canopies that connect the campus. And then the orange is a fabric canopy over an outdoor learning center, which would be a bid alternate 2. Again, the alternate 1, the large alternate, is to expand the gym. The gym would expand to allow for more distance between the goals in the wall, as well as the sideline in the wall, and also allow for more distance to allow for some bleacher seating, as well as the bleachers. And that would be alternate 1. So the first floor plan, again, northeast corner, which is upper right, that is a point of entry into the school. The green area is a commons area, which will also be used for student dining and student activities throughout the day. This first floor would be pre-K and kindergarten. The kindergarten would be on the right side of the slide, or on the Walker side, and the pre-K would be on the left side of the slide, which has doors opening onto the playground. And then if you go back up to the top of the slide and go to the left, that's the gymnasium, which is separated from the main building, only connected by an outdoor covered connector. The second and third floor are very similar. The stairs are on either end of the north-south corridor, and then there's an elevator situated on the north side of the building, which is up on the sheet. It's gray, right across from the stair. There's a 2-story space on the second floor, which looks down into the commons area. And then that tan gray corridor runs north and south, and that connects all the learning areas. Again, the learning spaces are broken into kind of educational pods, if you will. They include 3 classroom-type spaces, and then an area we call a launcher, which is a common space to that grade level that will be used for collaborative learning. And this is a better slide of what that might look like. The launcher, the collaborative space, is that larger space, which is down on the sheet, and then the green areas, the 3 areas, are the classroom spaces. There's also another alternate we'll discuss in a little while, but what you'll see is kind of a folding partition, a glass folding partition that separates the classroom area from the launcher. That is a bid alternate. The base bid has a glass wall with doors. And then there's also, if you look at the classroom, which is to the left, there are some tackboard areas which revolve to close off the launcher, or they rotate to close off the launcher from the classroom. That's also a bid alternate that we'll discuss in a minute. The base bid there is also for a glass wall. So we move on to the building elevations, which really just kind of shows you the massing of the building, window placement. The darker area is brick, the lighter area is limestone. And then it shows up really better in the sketches. So let me move to those. This is a rendering from Sheridan. And again, Sheridan, in talking to the traffic department, they have suggested that Sheridan could be a drop-off only zone. We're still studying that. We have a principal now for the school, and we'll be visiting with the principal more in terms of how the school will function. There's a possibility we'll ask only for a piece of that to be loading only with some parallel parking, but that'll come in the coming weeks as the administrative side of this is worked through. The area on the sketch, which is to the right, is the gymnasium, which is at that lower massing, and then the area to the far left is the classroom wing, which is 3-story. And so the building steps down really from the east to the west as it moves toward the film row area and lower densities. This would be that portal entry off of Sheridan. This will serve primarily as a service entry, but then also can also serve as a student entry for events. You know, if we have buses or if we have vans for various events and that sort of thing, this might be a logical place for that. This is a rendering from the north east corner, which is Sheridan and Walker. This is the primary entry into the building. Again, the darker color is brick, the lighter color is limestone, and then you have that glass corner. And another rendering then from the southeast. And this is the kind of that view you would see as you were entering this downtown area from the boulevard up Walker. This view is from Dewey, and this would be the area where parents will be queuing to drop off their children, to pick up their children. So at this location, we have a cover for inclement weather to keep the kids out of the rain, keep teachers and volunteers who are waiting for the children out of the rain, as well as it also begins to show the fence that surrounds the playground. This area would also be gated, so the entire playground could be closed down once the school day begins. And this would be that secondary entrance off of California that we spoke of. The proposed budget for the project, again, we have a budget of $14,250,000. The funding sources are $9 million from the original PIP. There have been some program contingencies added to the project of $1.5 million. There's TIF funding added to the project of $1.5 million. And then there has been private funding added to the project from the John W. Rex board of $2.25 million. Our current construction estimate for the project is $14.22 million. And then we have several ad alternates, some of which we've already discussed. But in the hopes of a good bid letting, we'll be able to get some of these. You can go down the list, but the largest, of course, is enlarging the gym. We have an alternate for the fabric canopy, which was orange on the site plan that we showed. The rotating marker boards, which we talked about. We also have an alternate to enhance the amount of millwork. The amount of millwork is roughly equivalent, in the base bid is roughly equivalent to what is encountered in any MAPS project. And then we have an enhancement of that millwork to add more storage areas in the teaching spaces. There's also then the addition of the canopy at the covered walkways that we talked about. And the nano wall, what that is that's that folding glass partition wall that if, at the end of the day, when it bids, if there's enough money, then we'll potentially have the glass partition opposed to a fixed glass partition. A folding glass partition. Pardon me?
$100,000?
That's what our estimate said. We had a consultant look at it. I thought it was less than that, but,
It needs to be less.
huh? Pardon me?
Quite a bit for a folding wall class.
Well, there's lots of them. Yeah, there's lots of them, and it is quite expensive.
I want to make sure I'm clear that the nano wall is the one that kind of rotates like this, and the accordion one is what's in the base bid?
No, the base bid is just a wall, a fixed
Just a wall.
Glass wall.
Yeah, glass wall. The nano wall is the folding
The one
glass
that
wall.
Okay.
Folding glass wall. Where it says rotating marker board, that's the one that rotates, right?
That's up here,
Number
69,000.
Yes, that's correct. Mhm.
Okay.
And we may, we're hopeful of being able to get some of this. We may not be able to get any of it, but we'll see how the bids come out. The current schedule would have us. The schedule really hasn't changed much over the many months, so we're still, with your approval today, we would bid the project on March 12th of 2013. We would anticipate that construction would begin sometime in late April, and that the school would then be open for children August, for the school year August 2014. We think our schedule shows it being completed in July of 2014. I have an interior board, if anybody has an interest in that. The interior colors are much as they were when we visited last. And I'll just hold that up. But I mean, basically what we try to do is introduce a lot of color into the classroom. The laminate, all the laminate is colored laminate. The various colors from the laminate are picked up in the carpet. And there's not much else to say about that, actually. But
Thank you.
so I think that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, comments, or observations.
Questions? Yes, Carl.
I have a couple. So when we exclude the private funding that was provided and look at that $12 million by the square footage, what is the price per square foot?
The price per square foot for the project is $189.
Okay, and that's excluding the private funds, or it includes?
No, that's all in. That's what we think. That's what our estimate is, $189,000.
Okay, and what is that within the average of what our conventional? It's higher. Well, I think it would be helpful for me to understand if we exclude the private funds to make an accurate apples-to-apples comparison. So I don't know if we happen to have that information, because I can do the math on the calculator. I'm just not sure how many square feet we're talking about.
There's approximately 75,000, Scott? 74,000 square feet.
What you're asking is what's a normal school's price per square foot these days?
Yeah, so if I exclude the private funding, I'm coming up with about $162 per square foot, based on your
That's
information.
a question. Is that right?
I don't know what a new normal school in MAPS costs, actually.
We don't know.
I wouldn't know what that is, but the money for the I think the private money was originally conceived to add some enhancements to the school.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those enhancements are now actually add alternates to help support the base bid amount of the school.
We're currently seeing 160, 170 per square foot on standard
New
MAPS
construction.
projects.
Okay, so I'm getting about 162 when you exclude the private funds, so that's right in line with what we've been doing. Okay. My second question is on those learning launchers. Can you tell me what is the maximum student capacity in each of those classrooms?
In each classroom, each classroom has been designed for approximately 23 students. It's conceived right now that there would be 60, maybe 21 students, 63 students per grade level. However, there's actually enough space in each of those classrooms to increase it probably by about 15 or 18%. So there's a little bit of a billows within the classroom.
So it could accommodate up to 25 or 26 kids per.
You could have 25 or 26 kids. When we started out with the CAP 500 program, each of the classrooms meet the CAP 500 requirements individually. And when we started out with the CAP 500 program, the program was such that it articulated the number of students per grade in a disproportionate way. I mean, there were more at the lower levels, as an example, than there might be at sixth grade. And the John Rex board asked to let the grade levels be equal all the way through from pre-K to sixth grade. So instead of having maybe 80 students or 70 students at the first grade level, there's 63. And instead of having 50 at the sixth grade level, there's 63. So it just blends out. So each of the learning modules is designed then to be pretty similar in size, or in fact exactly similar in size. And but each, again, within the context of each of those education spaces, you could conceivably add a handful of students without impacting the program.
Okay.
Other question? Yes, Anthony.
Where you listed the alternates, at least in your own mind, were those listed in priority order?
What priority one?
The add alternates, where you listed those, are they in your own mind in priority order?
Which one is priority one?
Yeah, which one is priority one?
That's a good question, actually. I had not given it a whole lot of thought, but I have some opinions of it. Let me go back and find that.
You just passed.
You just passed.
There it is. Okay, I'm sorry. I think for from an architect's perspective, and this is not from the John Rex board perspective or MAP's perspective, but from the architect's perspective, I think the highest priority would actually be the nano wall, because I think that would allow the space to function actually exactly like it's intended to function, to be able to open up the entire space in a very collaborative sort of way. So I think that would be the highest priority of all those.
My own opinion, and we've talked about this at various stages, but I would agree with that. I just continue to have this hard time thinking of a group of 70 kids all together, and then they're going to split out into these various areas that are not soundproofed. And that seems to be the one that provides the most soundproofing, and to me that's important. Mm-hmm. My second question is about the TIF funding, and I don't know if this is best directed to you, but is that approved? Is that finally?
I believe it has been approved. Is it? Yeah.
Yes, sir. That TIF money was approved quite some time ago.
You talked about the drop-off on Sheridan, and what would stop parents from dropping off their kids every morning on Sheridan?
Well, the gates won't be open. That would be one thing, I think. And again, I think that what we tried to do when we designed the project was allow for as much flexibility as we possibly could on the site. And so it could well be that once administration gets in and starts living in the building, that it doesn't actually function the way we thought it might. They might find a better way. But I think what we think is that we believe that the best place to drop the students off is on Dewey, just because it's the quietest street. There's not really any through traffic to speak of. You can queue a greater distance there. In talking to traffic, they would be open to the idea of posting it for one way only, during certain hours of the day. We have the potential to actually queue 2 cars deep if we needed to. And so it just offers us a lot more opportunity to queue parents there. At the end of the day, I don't think it would prove out to queue that kind of traffic on Sheridan. But I guess time will tell when the school administration really digs in and starts working the building. But I guess the simplest answer to your question, though, is that my expectation would be is that all gates are locked down except the gates that kids are coming in to. And so parents would figure that out.
If we haven't learned anything else from all of these MAPS projects, it is that the main entry to the school is not the main entry to the school. It's where kids are being dropped off.
Right.
And I think you've done a pretty good job of making the drop-off area, you know, with some signage and an entry. But just know that, you know, that Sheridan Walker entry is not the main entry.
Right.
It just looks like it is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you.
Well, to that end, sorry, I guess what I'm wondering is from an architectural perspective, since we're talking about new construction, wouldn't you want to design it so the main entrance looks like the main entrance?
Well, I think actually the main entrance of the school, which is not just ceremonial. I mean, it will be used as an entry by the public leaving and entering the building. Because this once the school day starts, this will be the only door that's open. Everything else will be locked down. And so, if I should bring my child here at 10 o'clock, or have to pick up my child for a doctor's appointment, that's the door I would go in, and I'd be parking on Walker, or I'd be parking at the parking garage, but it's an urban school, so people will park their car and they'll potentially walk a block with their child to get them in the door. Now, with regard to where the kids are coming in, I think actually, I think it reads as a point of entry, and I feel like, with the combination of the gate and the fence and the walls off to the side and the entry canopy, I don't think there's any mistaking that this is a important point of entry, even though it's not that big ceremonial.
Is that canopy in the deal? Is that an altar?
This part of the canopy is part of the base bid.
Okay.
Yeah. It's only the connector canopies that run alongside the building that are at alternate.
Other questions? Seeing none? Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item of business is to approve the expenditure of funds for the purchase of furniture, fixtures, and equipment for Hayes Elementary, not to exceed $25,000, project ES 62. This seems pretty minuscule compared to what we just talked about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is some additional furniture for Hayes Elementary. It is over the PIP, but it will be paid through project contingency funds.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Change orders. First, we're being asked to, with concurrence with the Independent School District number 89, approving change order number 4, the 2007 school bond issue project S71, classrooms and gymnasiums at Coolidge, Van Buren, Hayes Elementary School, an increase of $15,560. The second change order, number 5, for Monroe Elementary School, an increase of $49,515. And the third change order is to approve number 7 for Rancho Village Elementary School, an increase of $11,158. Accept the project and place the maintenance bond into effect, project ES 61. Are there any questions about any of these change orders? Seeing none, I'd recognize a motion to approve them.
So moved.
It's been moved. Or second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Thank you. Next item is to accept the Adams Elementary School roof replacement project and place the maintenance bond into effect, project ES 81. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Mr. Clowers.
Mr. Chairman, members of the trust, we have 22 schools in construction. Construction is nearing completion on 4 of those: Capitol Hill, Northwest Classen High Schools, Prairie Queen, and Spencer Elementary Schools. We only have 1 school in design, and I guess it's really not in design anymore, John Rex Charter School. As you've heard today, we anticipate receiving bids on it 5 weeks from today on March the 12th. Administration building is still on hold. I-89 bond projects, construction continues at Coolidge, Van Buren, Hayes, Wheeler, West Nichols Hills, and Monroe. The gym construction at Nichols Hills Elementary is still on hold. However, we do have a public meeting scheduled for the evening of February 21st at 6 o'clock at the school, which I believe is 2 weeks from Thursday. And hopefully we'll get some resolution at that meeting and be able to go forward. Also, still have an issue with the gym at West Nichols Hills Elementary, and we have a public meeting scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight on the 19th of February at 6 o'clock at the school. And hopefully that issue will be resolved then. Final plans phase for classrooms and gyms is complete at Parmalee, Hillcrest, Pierce, and the contract will be awarded in mid-February, and construction should start in March. We're nearing completion on final plans for Adams, Bodie, Horseman, and Kaiser. And also final plans nearing completion for Mark Twain, Putnam Heights, Southern Hills, Stanway, Buchanan, Gatewood, Johnson, and Oak Ridge Elementary School gym and classroom additions. Preliminary reports for Heronville, Fillmore, Prairie Queen, Rockwood, and Eugene Field Elementary School gyms are underway, and we anticipate receiving those this month. And final plan phase is still underway on Taft and Spiegel Stadiums. I might note that there will be a public meeting also on the Taft Stadium project. That will also be the same night as the West Nichols Hills Elementary meeting on February the 19th. That'll be 6 o'clock at the Northwest Classen Auditorium.
Any questions?
Yes. So for the public meetings that you're having at Nichols Hills and West Nichols Hills, in the case of Nichols Hills, are you all just getting input? Do we have a cost estimate on if we built the gym in a different location, what that would be, and will that be part of the discussion?
Yes, the site has been selected, and I'm going to let Mr. Todd correct me if I'm wrong here. The site has been selected, and I believe cost estimates have been put together for that, and so that information will be presented that evening.
So can I ask what those estimates are? And this is moving the gym from the west side to, I believe, the north side? Is
I
that
don't
right?
know offhand what that is, but I can get that to you. But yes, it is from moving it from that where it was on the west side,
West side to the
moving
north
it to
side?
the east side.
Oh,
Yes.
to the east
The east,
side.
probably to the east.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's the east side, which is now a black top there.
Right, and there'll be some additional parking added in there, and that'll
Okay.
be all part of the discussion that night.
Okay, all right.
Other questions? Yes, Anthony.
Okay. First, I would like to have a comparison between the cost, excluding the TIF money and the private money for the downtown school as compared on a square foot basis to Cesar Chavez. Second, and I'm sorry, Lance, that I didn't prep you on that, that question before I ask it, but just reading that audit report, I always get concerned about statements of material weakness. What the auditor is pointing out here is that, for example, today we just approved $1.5 million to go to Putnam City School District. And on the books of maps, we're going to expense that we have paid $1.5 million. But what the auditor is pointing out is that there's no mechanism to ensure that Putnam City spends $1.5 million on what they said they were going to. They might spend $1.4 million and use let me finish. And so what the auditor is saying is that in the future, this this refunding process, we might want to have some sort of an audit, for lack of a better term, process to oversee when the money gets paid over there, what happens to it.
Actually, we do have a process that keeps track of that money, and that's why we get money back from them. They submit documents that shows what they've spent, and we get that back. And let's say the $1.5 million, and let's say they spend 1.3, and essentially we get 200,000 back. The issue, as I understand it, and I'm getting kind of out of my area of expertise, but as I understand it, is that when we get essentially a $200,000 check back from the schools, we're just putting it back into our account, and it's showing up as revenue, and it shouldn't show up as revenue. Right. So I just want to make clear.
But do we do any work to say that that check shouldn't have been $300,000?
Yes, we do. We do.
And so let me jump in, because I think what I heard you say, and I want to make sure I heard this correctly, is that you have them submit either their invoices or as they go along in the project planning from those third parties to say, we charged Putnam City X amount for this work. You've got that in your documentation, so you know what they spent that $1.3 million on.
That's correct.
Okay.
Short of double contracting, they're
Right.
dealing with it.
And that's, I think that was a little different from what your understanding was, so.
Point of clarification, Trustee Francisco, do you want those comparisons on the John Rex School, do you want it based on the current estimate or based on the bids after we receive bids? Okay, so you want it based on the estimate?
And please share those with everyone.
Sure. I'd be glad to.
Any other comments from trustees, staff? Oh,
I do have a comment. I'm sorry to keep the meeting running. I asked David for an update of the letter sent by Bob Ross and on the Inasmuch Foundation regarding the request for additional expenditures at Cesar Chavez.
We have met with district personnel, and we're having those discussions on how we can fund that. We think that maybe there's some funds in their 2007 bond issue from a school that wasn't built, that they can use. We haven't been directed to do any of that yet, but we are having those discussions as far as the gym and the additional classrooms.
Okay.
I
frankly,
think
it's not our decision.
I understand that. I just want it in the record that
Yes,
we're
they've been
pushing it. And
Yes, sir.
I think we need to push it because they've offered some funds as well, and I think that's a
we'll continue to have that discussion with
nice
them.
thing. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Any comments by staff?
I have one comment.
Yes.
I just want to make everybody aware that today is the 13th anniversary of David Todd's 39th birthday.
Congratulations for another good year.
Happy anniversary.
Are there any other comments from citizens? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.